Pairing live stream. I think we're live. Welcome,
Hello.
and Neil, take it away.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. Thanks, Rich. Um, so yeah, we've been talking about doing this for a little while, having a kind of introduction to crypto for anyone that doesn't know anything about it. So today we're going to have a little chat, just some real basics at a real basic level about what crypto is and what it might be useful for. Um, I've had a little bit more experience than Jeff and Rich, so it's going to be kind of like an AMA where Jeff and Rich ask whatever they want, and I see if I can answer it. Um, Feel free to post questions and comments, and we're going to have like a Zoom meeting afterwards for people on the New World Chaos server that come and join us. I guess that's about it, really. I guess open to you and to Rich and Jeff, if you want to say a little bit about where you're at with it and what questions you might have, and we'll get going.
Okay,
Yeah.
okay. Well, I'm brand new to it. I haven't bought my first coin or any crypto at all, so I'm still trying to weigh if like how much I want to get involved and if I want to get involved and all that. So I'm the newest of the newbie.
Okay, cool.
Well, I guess I've known about kind of Jeff. Sorry, Neil. You kind of introduced me to it about month and a half ago, I think it was, and it kind of really piqued my interest. So I'm now at the point where I'm kind of signed up to an exchange. I keep an eye on the prices on a marketplace sort of thing, eyeing up some crypto coins and which ones I kind of like the look of and kind of researched into them. And I'm just about to take that kind of first step. So I'm still very much a noob to this. And that's where I am.
I
Okay.
like the idea behind it, like the ability. It seems the freedom it seems to give people to create networks and kind of it goes along with our self-determination values, so it's attractive, really attractive to me for that reason.
Maybe that's a good place to start, is to just a bit of an intro to what is a cryptocurrency. Um, so, and by the way, none of this is financial advice, and I'm not going to try to short any coins or anything. It's just really just a learning space. So maybe the starting point is many people would have heard of cryptography or encryption without knowing anything about cryptocurrency. So just to sort of lay that out, encryption is the process of making information secret. And that's what it was usually used for, codes and coded ways of communication. But it can also be used to make information secure. So in the same way that a code would need to be broken to understand what's written in it, in the case of cryptocurrency, the encryption is the process of making sure that the ownership of the currencies is secure. So that's where the crypto part comes from. And currency, relatively self-explanatory. It's a form of coin or money, and other uses too. So cryptocurrencies can be used as money just for purchasing goods, or they can be used for things like voting rights or governance or content creation and ownership. So there's a lot that you can do with cryptocurrency, but basically it's a way of securely owning something of value. Probably the
Now,
easiest.
there's a distinction between cryptocurrency and blockchain, or are they the same thing?
Yeah. So a blockchain is a digital network where the cryptocurrencies are held. So the easiest way to think about it is to think about an accounts book or a ledger where you'd write down all the transactions, who owns what, and every time, let's say the three of us all own some money and we write it down in an accounts book, and then I paid Jeff some money, so we write down that Neil's paid Jeff some money. Now Jeff has more and Neil has less, and then maybe I need to pay Rich some money too, so then another transaction gets recorded, and every transaction gets recorded in the accounts book or the ledger. So a blockchain is, so if you think of a block as being a page in a ledger that has all of the history of our transactions. The next block is the next page in the ledger, and that refers to the previous one, so you know what order the transactions were created in. And it's called a chain because they're all linked together, and they're linked together using encryption, a means by which you can't then go and change the information. So what you end up with is kind of like an accounts book or a ledger with every single transaction in history recorded in the precise order when it took place. So if I was to try to pay money to Rich that I don't have, that ledger can show that I don't have that, and then Rich would say, well, I'm not going to, I'm not going to sell you my signed football because you don't actually have the money in the account to pay me. So this becomes a means by which we can ensure that transactions are valid before we do them. And it's the encryption part then comes into making sure that information can't be changed. So I can't sneakily go and add an extra zero on the end of my bank account and claim I've got more money than I have. And the big difference between blockchains and the way that they present these accounts books or ledgers is that they're publicly available. Anyone can check them. Anyone can validate the transactions. Rather than it behind closed doors. Yeah.
You'd have to break the encryption to make any changes, so the encryption keeps it secure from alteration.
Yeah, that's it. The purpose of the encryption is to keep it secure. So it's publicly available, it's transparent, it's open source, anyone can look at it, but no one can change it. And that provides a really big difference to traditional banking, where our accounts are held within banks by centralized organizations. And theoretically, if they wanted to change the values on any of those accounts, they could, because they have access to it. But with a blockchain, once the transaction's been created and validated and recorded, nobody can change it ever. So you have this perfectly clear, perfectly readable history that allows transparency. Therefore, I no longer need to trust the bank. To be honest, I can just look at the blockchain and see for myself. So then we can start operating with people. We don't need to trust them. All we need to do is check the blockchain that the information is there, and if it's there and it's been validated, then we can just rely upon that. And we no longer need to hope that the guy in the suit and tie or behind a closed door in a bank is making decisions that we don't agree with, or are laundering money or changing accounts or any shit like that. So
we had talked just before we came on about what is money, why money, and one of the things that came up is it's a way to assign value to something, like to kind of quantify what you value. And the issue of trust, I think, came up too. Like with our current system, there's potential for mistrust or abuse, and so this seems like if you have the I know from working in trauma, transparency builds trust. So if you have the transparency, that trust is kind of already there, and so it takes the idea of money and trust, I guess it takes it to the next level, or makes it more. I don't hear like you don't have to trust the person. I hear that because it's so transparent, the trust is trivial at that point, or not an issue anymore.
That's a really good way to describe it. So they're often described as trustless systems. So systems that don't require trust. I guess on the basis that trust would be something that's developed over time through interaction. Like I may trust you and Rich because I've got to know you. So I would definitely trust you more than a complete stranger. So if it comes to a transaction, something about value and money, I would have much more tendency to trust you and Rich than just somebody I pass on the street. And so in a way, the idea of it being trustless, i.e. having a system which requires that I can essentially trust I don't need to trust the person on the street. I can trust the system that's being used to be valid. Yeah. In a way, another way to frame that is that I can trust the person on the street because of the system does all of that for me. Yeah. So it's kind of two ways of looking at it. It's either you don't need trust or trust is everywhere, but it comes to the same outcome, which is you can act without having to first develop a relationship, and the sort of security and insecurity that comes along with how well do I know this person, and all of that gets eliminated, and you can just go, yes, I can do this, or no, I can't. Nice. And that makes it much quicker to use, much more secure, and emotionally it gives you that emotional security of being able to do things without that niggling sense of I hope they don't screw me on this, like so yeah, and that makes things faster, and it opens up doors, because then like maybe I want to do business with somebody in Indonesia, and I have no way of knowing them or trusting them. But if the blockchain that I'm using shows me that those assets are available, they have the money or they have the service that I want, then I can go ahead and do that. So that really starts to open up the connections between people and allow people to operate with complete strangers in a way that has some kind of sense of trust in it. And that, I think that socially is really valuable. And because so many people are excluded in the world of money, so many people are excluded because they either don't have bank accounts, or we don't know them, we don't know how to trust them, we don't know if there's an insurance to help us if things go wrong. So one of the things that blockchain is trying to achieve, and what cryptocurrencies therefore work towards, is building systems that allow anyone to work with anyone without the fear or the insecurity around can I trust them or not. So that opens up people who are economically excluded or marginalized. Suddenly they can get plugged into economic systems, and that can really generate wealth for the poor. And so that's a huge thing that crypto is trying to do. It's very, very popular in Southeast Asia, where 3 times as many people own a mobile phone compared to people who have a bank account. So like 2/3 of the population of Indonesia don't have bank accounts, some ridiculously large number, because the banks are corrupt and you need all these IDs to get it, and getting the ID requires bribing an official, and it's just but anyone could go and get a mobile phone, and then anyone can use crypto. So now people can start to transact and create wealth for themselves, and they don't need to be working with these corrupted actors. So I think that's trust and money becoming accessible safely through that process of security provided by encryption and transparency provided by these like really, really long account books, which are called blockchains. Does that make sense? So like, because I can dive too deep sometimes. So
I think for me, the kind of real world application is really interesting. And I'll give an example of what I kind of popped into my head. Neil, you can correct me if I'm wrong. But one of the things you showed me was the kind of charity kind of sector, and my idea, well, it's not my idea at all, but my thought was, at the moment in the UK at least, if you've got like a charitable organization, a given organization that gives out funds to other smaller charities, at the moment, say, if they give out some funds, say 6, 8 months, 12 months down the line, you as a smaller charity who've received this money have to write out an evaluation form to tell them exactly how you spent your money, to make sure you spent it on what you said you were, where it's gone, etc. So if this transaction between these two charitable organizations is on the blockchain, the mother company who gave out this money can just look on the blockchain and see where the money's gone. See what I mean? So there would no need for that evaluation anymore. And kind of like, you wouldn't have to kind of watch out for charities kind of embezzling money, even with ones, say you gave money to, I don't know, Save the Donkeys or something like that. You could see where your money had gone, and it wasn't going to some dude in a suit behind a desk. It was actually going to save a donkey, if you see what I mean. So is that
that's
kind of
very
like
true? Yeah, I mean, there's been some real strange scandals in charities, like children's charities that invest in firearms and alcohol and other things. So the way they're securing money is strange, and then like you say, some of it is actually being spent on pensions and desks and holidays and not spent on the purpose for which you donated the money. But you're exactly right. With a blockchain system, with a cryptocurrency system, you could see exactly where every transaction has gone, and anyone could verify that instantly. So not only you as a funding organization, but also every member or every donator or anyone that supports those charities or is just interested could look like instantly and check everything in pretty much a live environment as well. So that it does provide that. It provides that transparency. You can build in reporting systems to block. They don't just have to be about moving currencies, but there's a what are called smart contracts. Any form of kind of legal agreement or contractual agreement can be encoded into a blockchain using AI, using artificial intelligence. And when the conditions are met, the contract is done. And that way you can remove lawyers and solicitors and accountants and various other people that may choose to sign or not sign, or I couldn't sign on the day because I was on holiday and therefore it didn't get done on time. Get rid of all of that. So it goes a little bit beyond just the moving of money or value, but then starts adding intelligence to that. So a good example would be, let's say we wanted to crowdsource some money so that we could run an event to teach people about self-determination. And in order to do that, maybe we needed to raise £10,000 or $10,000. And so a bunch of people were donating through this crowdsourcing system. Once it reaches that amount of money, the company that runs the crowdsourcing system would have to make the decision to send it to us and verify to those that provided it that that's been done. And then it's down to us to provide the service. But in a blockchain situation, you can have an AI do all of that for you. So as soon as that money is reached, that limit's reached, it will be transferred and everyone's notified. If it's not reached, the money is just sent back. And you don't need anybody in the middle to do that. That allows people to set things up for themselves and for people to participate and to monitor exactly what's going on. Otherwise, if you just phone a crowdfunding organization and say, I donated $20, what's happening with it? You probably won't get a response. So that's another example, a sort of charitable example about how you're taking control away from centralized bodies and organizations and just distributing it to the people involved. So you become a much stronger actor in anything you're involved in. You can even go as far as be involved in the governance of the organizations that you spend money with.
I am really excited about the idea, the potential for community building that you're touching on. But I have another question too. You explained crypto, but can you explain currency? What is money?
That's a really good question. So we're all familiar with money because we've been using it for thousands of years. And it's so embedded in our culture and our daily lives that we probably don't really think about it. But money is older than written language. Like the first example of written language was actually an accounting ledger of how much grain is stored somewhere. And it would probably be accurate to say that writing was created as a way to monitor money. So then we ask, so what is the money? The way I think about it is money is the way that we communicate value. So it's a tool or technology that we use to communicate value. So as an example, let's say I really like your Ape Cave t-shirt and
it's fun.
Yeah, it's cool. So, if I wanted that, I'd be willing to pay, let's say £20 or $20 for that t-shirt. Right? That's a way for me to communicate what that is, what the value of that item is to me. And for me to get £20 or $20, I know I have to do X amount of work. So in a way, the money sits in between the effort I put into the world, the work that I do, and the money translates that to how I value the things I get for my effort. So
someone's valuing your effort too.
Yes.
So someone's placing value on your effort, and then you can value what's important to you.
Yeah, absolutely. And And it also has a way then of expressing preference, because you may be willing to pay $50 for that t-shirt, like, because you may prefer that t-shirt more. So there's this way that we can all uniquely express our value and collectively come to an agreement about value as well, which is the prices we see in the shops, for example. That's our collective agreement about what things are worth. And it's useful because if we were bartering, and we sort of spoke about this before, but let's say that Rich sells oranges or grows oranges, and I grow apples, and Jeff, you make t-shirts, right? And I come along and say, I want that t-shirt, I'll give you this basket of apples. And you can just say, I don't like apples.
I love apples.
So then there's no way for me to make that exchange. But you might like oranges. And so then you can swap the t-shirt for oranges. And then now Rich has got the t-shirt if he wants it. And then I might try to trade with Rich to get what I want that way. That becomes really complex. But if we have money, you can just say, I want X money for this. And then you can use that money to go buy oranges from Rich. So then I can still get the t-shirt, you can still get the oranges, and Rich doesn't have to get caught up in the middle of our trade attempt. So the money serves that function as well. It takes us away from bartering, where both parties need to have an agreement that they want the other person's goods. And it gives us a means by saying, well, I can just change goods for this thing called money, and then I can use this to get any other good I want. So then we collectively as a society, we agree what we're going to use as money. So it could be beads, shells, salt, animals, or at some point, gold, silver, now paper money, or credit cards. So kind of like digital money. And now we have cryptocurrency. So it's just another form of a thing that we use that we can agree upon its value, so that we can exchange goods and services without having to barter with one another. So there's nothing really new about cryptocurrency. It's just a new form of something that's been around a very, very long time.
A new and improved form if it eliminates the trust or resolves the trust issue. Because even like with the barter and the money system that became kind of an intermediate carrier value between barterers, human nature being what it is, there's still the potential for deception or vacillation, people changing their mind, backing out of and so it seems like another form of that, but maybe an innovation on it or an improvement upon it, because it eliminates some of the disadvantages, I guess, that from the system that developed to replace bartering.
Yeah, I agree. I think it does eliminated the problems with barter, and some of the things that crypto is doing is eliminating the problems with fiat currency, things like US dollars and euros and pounds. So I think it is the next advancement in money.
We've touched on it a little bit with kind of not having to trust the bank manager behind a desk and kind of getting involved with the actual governance of some of these kind of cryptocurrency companies and stuff. Could we touch on a little bit about how the blockchain is kind of decentralized? I think that's a real valuable topic that we could talk about, is like how it's actually run and the kind of what's within the blockchain itself, like the different nodes and kind of how that's kind of worked out. Could we discuss that a little bit?
Yeah, that's a really great question. So one of the problems we have with fiat money is that it's centrally controlled by governments that use central banks to create it. And as most of us are aware, governments print money whenever they want more of it. It's easier for them to print money than it is to raise taxes, because people object to raising taxes. So they just print money instead, and it has the same effect. And one of the impacts of that is that, one, because it's centrally controlled, there's nothing we can do about it. And two, as they print more money, which we call inflation, prices go up and the value of our savings goes down. So anyone that's had, say, $1,000 or £1,000 in savings for the past 10 years, 10 years ago, you could have bought a lot more with that 1,000 than you can now. And I doubt very much you've earned much interest in that period. So money loses value over time through this central control. So decentralization, what does that really mean? So going back to the ledger, the blockchain. So we call it, maybe an accounts book is an easier way to describe it. So we've got this accounts book. If that accounts book was only in my hands, then there's still central control, and I could maybe go through it and alter things, right? And you'll just have to trust me that I'm not doing that, even though I am. So, but what if we've all got a copy? So we've all got the same accounts book, and whenever a new transaction is added, it has to be added to all accounts books, and we all have to agree that that's been done. So this is the first step in decentralization. This is where in order for that accounts book or that ledger, in this case a blockchain, to move forward through time, it needs all of us to agree to the content of it. Well, the three of us could collude, especially because we know each other, right? So we could start fudging and changing stuff. So what happens if you get 10,000 people that don't know each other, that all have a copy of this accounts book, and every new transaction is sent out to all of these different copies? The copies are then called nodes. So that word node that you use, a node is basically a computer or similar device which holds a copy of the blockchain. So it's a copy of an account book held on a computer somewhere. Every new transaction gets sent out to all of these computers. These are owned by people that don't know each other, so they can't work collectively to cheat the system. But there would be some bad actors. You're bound to get someone who's going to try, or maybe even a couple of people. Maybe the three of us collude to try and cheat, whilst the other 9,000 don't. Okay, just as a working example. So the way the system works is that at least 51% of those computers, those ledgers, need to be identical, and then that's the one that goes forward as being the trusted chain, and then that gets shared with everybody else, and every new transaction or set of transactions will get encrypted, validated, and it'll be validated across loads of different nodes across different computers. And it's only upon agreement from all of these separate people that don't know each other that we can say, yes, this is correct, let's move forward onto the next stage, onto the next page in the ledger, in the account book. So decentralizing means that no single person or group of people can control the content, which makes fraud virtually impossible, corruption virtually impossible. This brings the trust element in. You'll always get people trying to work out how to cheat it. That's kind of part of human nature, unfortunately. So the technology is constantly advancing in how to not be cheatable. And it's getting to stages now where it's just the maths of it is mind-boggling, so it's not worth going into. But the outcome is that people all around the world are collectively agreeing on what a valid transaction is without knowing each other. And the opportunity for anyone to cheat that is reaching zero, basically. So the decentralizing is about taking power away from any single person or group of people that can corrupt something, and spreading it out so far amongst complete strangers that it would be impossible to collude and work together in order to cheat.
It sounds too good to be true. And here's what I'm worried about.
Sure.
That it is too good to be true. And I invest in blockchain. I build up some currency for myself. It somehow, the current existing structures find a way to delegitimize it or neuter it or cause it to be, even though ideally it works that way, prevents it from working that way in our current system on a practical level.
So do you mean by reputation, or do you mean technically?
Like governments actively interfering to prevent its use, even though it functions this way, through some kind of regulation or intervention, that we're prevented from using it anyway. So, and then the money I've invested is not worth anything to me.
I think that's a really genuine fear, particularly around regulation being introduced to make it impossible to work with. So this is a question that's explored regularly and thought about a lot. So one thing is that cryptocurrencies are borderless. So let's just take a single country. Let's say that the UK decided to make regulation on cryptocurrency so complex that no one really wanted to interact with it anymore. Well, the rest of the world can just carry on. And because of the fact that this is technology that functions in a network like the internet, technologically, I can probably just carry on doing it anyway, using it anyway. So in order for cryptocurrency to truly be regulated to the point that it can't function and therefore lose its value, you'd need pretty much every country in the world to organize themselves and collude into doing that. And international cooperation just doesn't function in that way. As soon as say the UK and the US and Europe, as an example, as three huge areas of monetary power, if they all said, right, we're going to regulate the shit out of crypto so no one can use it, Southeast Asia, African continent, South America would just go, okay, we'll use it. And so therefore the systems can stay alive. But even then, the cryptocurrencies are run by private individuals, essentially. Like you and I can download nodes for various cryptocurrencies and run them on our computers and be part of that. So the governments to technically stop it would need to actually prevent everyone having access to the internet, which is impossible without shutting down every function of the internet. So technically, to interfere with it at that level would require the governments to spend more money than they have. The way the systems function, particularly the proof of work systems, you need to use computer power to interfere. So you need to have a hell of a lot of computer power and a lot of money and coordinate to do that. On a regulatory basis, if one country, so already regulation in China, for example, has become quite anti-crypto. That's because China is trying to build its own digital national currency and it doesn't want any competition. In response to that, places like Singapore and Portugal and various other countries have said, okay, come here. Like, we'll take your business and we'll even make it tax-free. So there are already nations which are becoming crypto nations. And then you'd have all of this international sort of sanctioning and pressure to actually do anything regulatory about it. So I think it's a genuine concern, and it's something really to keep an eye on, particularly within your own nation state, because it can be very different from country to country. But in terms of a global initiative, I don't think that countries would ever be that cooperative. And if one country's banning it, someone else is going to try and take advantage. And we're seeing that happening already, to the point that El Salvador is looking at Bitcoin as being a co-national currency with the US dollar. And there are other countries that are considering having cryptocurrencies as part of their national currency systems. So it would just basically draw business and money to the places which allow it. And that would be a strong enough financial motive for most governments not to get in the way.
Well, since this is an intro podcast, if somebody wanted to like dip in the waters of crypto, what's a good, easy way for them to get started?
Good question. So probably there's a couple things that are really worth considering. One, doing a bit of research about what you wanted to invest in. Something like Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, some like really large projects that are worth hundreds of billions of dollars and have been running for years would be really sort of safe bets to start. So you want to try to choose something, do a little research about what you want to invest in.
And when you say project, there's Bitcoin is not the only cryptocurrency out there, right? There's people are creating their own versions of currency. And so there's many different types of currency to invest in.
Yeah, there's about 11,000 at the moment.
Ooh,
So they operate in things like Bitcoin is probably the only one that really is a true money in terms of that's its only purpose. Most other cryptocurrencies have got like really cool and interesting multiple purposes. Like there's one that is basically replicating YouTube. So your subscribers and followers on New World Chaos could have a New World Chaos coin, and the more of that they own, they could then use that coin to buy special content, become a guest on the show, meet in person. Like you can start to, so any content creator can create their own cryptocurrency, like a fan token or something along those lines. So there's just one of the, you wouldn't use that necessarily to go to the shops and buy a coffee. So it might just have a special use purpose, but you could trade it and you could sell it for dollars, and you can sell it to other users. And so it still has a currency function, but it might be contained within its own special ecosystem of use. So that's why I would do the research. There are thousands of them. But then the process really is for someone that's new and wants to do this really safely, you'd want to go to a recognized cryptocurrency exchange. So this is a company that's been around for years, that has a good reputation, and they're kind of easy to find. So in the US, I know like Swan Bitcoin is a great one for Bitcoin. Coinbase gives you access to lots of different currencies. So does Gemini. There's other systems like Binance, Kraken. There's quite a few out there now, but it would just be worth going on to Google and just like review of cryptocurrency exchanges and see who the top ones are. So you'd start off by basically opening an account with an exchange. Then you'd need to deposit some currency like pounds or euros or dollars onto that exchange. And from there, you are able to buy whatever cryptocurrency is that you're seeking to buy, providing it's on the exchange. So Bitcoin is on every exchange, so that's an easy one to start with. So it's basically like it'd be like going almost to get some currency to go on holiday with. You go down, you got some money, you go down there and say, I want to change it for this other money, please. So for the money that you're changing it to is a cryptocurrency rather than a fiat one. So that would be the first step. Find an exchange that's trustworthy. Use the review sites and go for one of the biggest ones possible because they're the most secure. Deposit some money onto there, some dollars or pounds or euros or whatever. And I would suggest quite a small amount, partly to get used to it, but partly so that you've got very low risk. Then you purchase a currency that you want to purchase. From there, you can either keep it or you can wait for the value to go up and sell it again and get your dollars back or whatever you want to do. If you're going to keep it for the long term, the next step would be to get a digital wallet. And again, you can use review sites to find out which ones have been around the longest, have the best reputation. They're all free to use and download. But then you would just kind of like move your cryptocurrency from the exchange into your wallet. And by doing so, then you have the ownership of that encryption. So that's where the encryption becomes really powerful. So thinking of it this way, whilst your cryptocurrency is on an exchange, it's kind of like having your money in a bank where they have access to the bank account. It's your money, but it's in their pocket. When you move it into a wallet, what you're actually doing is taking ownership of the encryption for that currency. Then you're the only person that can access that account. And so even if the exchange collapsed and went out of business, your money is safe. So the starting point is an exchange. Put some fiat money onto the exchange, buy the thing you want to buy. And if you plan on keeping it, move that thing into a wallet and you're done. And all of this is done really with like maybe 4 or 5 button clicks for the main part. It's become very, very easy to do. Rich.
As somebody who's just gone through this process, a couple of things I think I need to emphasize as much as you did is the research into the organizations or the products deeply before you kind of go through the process. Like you suggested, well, you kind of gushed about Cardano, so that was the first kind of cryptocurrency I was like looking at, and they have things like, well, how would you describe a white paper? Like kind of their project outline, I guess you would call it, or their kind of ethos.
Yeah, so a white paper is normally a technical or semi-technical description of what their intention is. So we have created this project for this purpose, and this is how we foresee this project working. So it will cover things like. So go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so that was one of the things I was looking for, was kind of like a transparent company that kind of gave you exactly, and like, let's take Cardano for an example again. Like one of the owners, he's on YouTube, and he posts videos like nearly every other day. You know, he's there, he's saying what's going down. That's so refreshing. And then, as I'm going to say again, research, especially when looking into wallets. Make sure they hold the currency you want. Make sure they've got the currency of your kind of like fiat coin. And one thing I will note is the exchanges. Some of them have different regulations on what kind of coins they take or what kind of fiat coins they accept. And please be aware there is like a lot of the organizations, they do want what's it called? Know your customer kind of way to get in. So you do have to kind of have a valid ID, passport, etc. Which some are quicker than others. I mean, the one I chose in the end was just like pretty much instant. But anyway, but yeah, research, loads of research, which I love. So it's cool.
What do people that don't like research or don't have the time for research do? Is there a either an alternate path or assistance with research, or a way to streamline it for people?
At the moment, I'd say, because it's quite a new industry, there's probably not as much out there. I mean, something that I'm intending to do, there are some good YouTube channels, and you can find some people that share good information. I find a lot of it is actually at a technical, or at a level where it assumes you already know a fair bit. So when I first started watching YouTube channels about crypto, I didn't really understand what I was doing. I didn't understand what they were saying, and I had to go off and do a lot of research. But increasingly, they're becoming a bit more at the level for somebody that's new, and so somebody that's not interested in research. I mean, it's starting to go that way. I hope to actually develop something that is nice and simple and that will really help people get started. So maybe that's something we can offer in this space at some point in the future.
Yeah.
Not too far from now. I'm working on content at the moment. And it's really helpful to understand that people are put off by research, and therefore something that's very straightforward and bypasses that would be very helpful. I think the simplest, the minimalist way to do it would be is probably just to Google like top 10 exchanges, top 10 wallets, and just check that number one on that list does what you want it to do and go with that. I mean, ultimately, probably the top 5 in any of these lists is reliable. And the lists, you will see that the lists are consistent anyway. So I think that you probably don't have to go into checking white papers and reading up on everything to get yourself going. Just use a good review site and pick something from the top. That's how I like buying mobile phones and cameras and laptops and everything else. I don't know shit about any of that technology. I rely upon review sites that just tell me that these ones are good, and go, okay, I'll just trust.
I can spend hours in those rabbit holes, like for that.
Yeah.
I don't do it for that reason, because it's gonna. I would never tell my mom to go research crypto and buy yourself some coins and then find a wallet. I would never tell her that. But you're saying that if she went on Google and did that and pulled up the top 5, that could, she's pretty safe doing that, even though I would be nervous about it. That
Yeah, I think well, in terms of an exchange and a wallet, yes, then you could definitely get yourself set up that way. In terms of what to invest in, I wouldn't use Google as a way to work out what to invest in. There's too many people pushing stuff that maybe isn't valuable. Instead, I would probably use a website like CoinMarketCap, where they just list all the currencies. So you'd want something specific. You'd want a cryptocurrency review website or a cryptocurrency market website, which just lists all of the coins, what they're worth, and then you can click on each one and read a 1 paragraph description that gives you a basic idea of what it is. And that would be, within half an hour to an hour, you could probably have made a choice. But it's hard to make recommendations to people because I think it is quite a personal thing. I don't at this point push anything in particular. Like I don't feel that things like, so Bitcoin is probably the most famous and is the longest existing, and therefore has the most likely strong future. But so many of the other things that are out there are really powerful. It then starts becoming a little bit more about what's your personal choice. I'm happy to work with anybody I know on a one-to-one basis and just go through, what's the types of questions, what's important to you, what do you value in something, and then help somebody look. Because I think that it can be daunting and it can be confusing. And for me, okay, so maybe I'll give you a really brief story. So why am I doing this? So a few years ago, I bought some Bitcoin and I bought some Ethereum, and I forgot that I bought them. And they were a very small amount. So I bought them and I forgot about them. And then last year, as we started coming through to the end of the year, and this whole year of COVID and people becoming unemployed and financial crisis sort of slowly emerging, I was looking at my savings account, and I'd had a load of money in my savings accounts for years and realized that it hadn't grown. I had really virtually no more money than when I'd started, but the cost of everything had gone up. And I was like, well, this money is now worth less to me than it was a few years back. And I was like, if I just carry on at this rate, this money will eventually be worthless. So what the hell am I doing with it? So I thought, oh, maybe I'll invest it in something. So I was looking at shares, like stocks and shares in like tech companies and whatever. And I was just like, oh, I hate this company and I hate that company and I don't trust them and I don't trust them. And they haven't really gone up that much in value over the past few years or anyway, or maybe I've missed the opportunity. If I'd done it 10 years ago, it'd be great, etc. And then I remembered that I had this crypto. So I went back and had a look at it, and it was worth like 4 times what I'd paid for it. And I was like, oh shit, this has gone up a lot in value. So around November last year, I decided to take some of my savings and invest it. And about 4 months later, that was almost double or triple its value. So then I took the rest of my savings and invested that, and that's all gone up in a lot in value as well. So now I have probably 3 or 4 times what I had at the end of last year. And that process is what made me say, okay, actually, what am I investing in? Like, I was making choices based on speculative guesses and really risky. I was doing a little bit of research, but mainly I was going, oh, I like the sound of that, I'll have a go at that one. And I realized that what I was doing wasn't informed. So I've spent this year informing myself. Now I feel I have a much better understanding of how to research a project, what's important about it, what its potential value is, what's its social value, what does that mean for me? And I choose things that I'm interested in, that I think are fun, that I think are doing something good, and that have had a few years of existence and a bit of stability. And so I'm happy to just, so the other thing that happened is during that same period, members of my friends and family lost their jobs. And so they were getting in increasingly financial difficulty. And there was me becoming wealthier than I'd ever been before, or have ever been before, whilst everyone else's money seemed to be going down. And I was like, well, this is no fun. Like, I've always dreamed of my friends and family all doing well, not just me. So then I started to tell my friends and family what I'm doing, and anyone that showed interest, I'd speak more with. So my brother took some interest, and he's been quite successful. My partner, she got interested, and she's been very successful. And she seems to have a good intuition. She picks projects, and then I look at them and go, yeah. She was the one that put me onto Cardano. She was like, this one, and I was like, why? It feels right. The guy that runs it seems really honest. He's on YouTube all the time, and he's really upfront and just really transparent, and it's been fantastic. So that's kind of my journey. I want to help everyone I know secure their wealth for their future if I can, and only for those that are interested. So that's why I'd say one-to-one. If you want to know more, Jeff, and you don't want to do the research, I'll just help you through that. But it'd be great to produce a channel which does that on a wider scale, so other people have the same perhaps desire but also reservation can learn without having to go down the rabbit hole, so to speak.
I'm worried I would just end up with the coin that had the cutest dog picture on it. So
that can happen.
In smart research or intelligent research, I don't know if I trust myself to completely carry through on that. And myself as a stand-in for my family and kind of just ordinary mainstream people that I know. I can see them getting sidetracked by factors other than the ones that it's important to research and base your decision on.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So the three areas that I research or what I recommend people try to understand is, what is it used for? So like, does it have a use? Is it useful in the world? Because if it's useful, then it's likely to grow. 2, can you identify who came up with the project or who's building it or developing it? So any project that's got a good website and has photographs of all the people that are involved or their LinkedIn IDs, these are people that you could track down. And that's really important, because if the developers are hidden, it could be a scam or it could be going nowhere. So is it useful? Can you identify those that are involved in it? And then the last one is, kind of what's its value? So I only look at things in like the top 50 coins out of 11,000. I tend to just look at the top 50. They've all got values that are in the tens of millions or billions. And so I know I'm not the only person involved. And so there's those 3 factors at the moment. That's pretty much all I look at. And I use CoinMarketCap, which is a website that has all of that information in one place and makes it very easy to just start there and just choose ones, click, read, follow through. But yeah, it can be easily distracted by the cutest dog picture or the funniest name or something like that.
I will warn you, Jeff, I have found one with a cute dog picture as its logo, so just be careful.
All it's going to take is one ape cave coin, and that's the research is going to go out the window.
I'll look for one with an ape cave on it. No, but yeah, there's so many.
I noticed we have a few commenters. We have Kathy in the comments, and if anybody has any questions, or I guess we plan to do a Zoom after this, a Zoom hangout, so we could probably start transitioning to that. We normally invite guests on to join the Zoom as commenters. But if you have any questions, you can put them in the comments and we can try to answer them, or Neil can try to answer them. And we will probably wrap this up soon and move to a Zoom hangout, so we could also send you the Zoom link and you could join us.
Yeah.
And the hangout will not be recorded, so it will just be a private hangout where we can just sit and talk about crypto and whatever else comes up.
So I'm just sending that link out to people through our Discord server and saying to join in about 10 minutes. Okay. So we shall wrap up in about the next 10 minutes. So if there's any questions in the comments that people want me to address here in the live stream, then I'm happy to do so. Or if
have you heard of Eurus?
Have I heard of, sorry, what?
Verus, Verus, is a question in the comments.
VERUS. I haven't, but I will check it out right now as we speak.
I'm doing that as well. What did you say? How do you say it was spelled? VER.
Verus. I'll type it in the chat too.
No problem. So let's have a look. Let's do some live research on Verus.
The Virus coin
Yep.
and an e-virus. Virus coin.
VRSC is the coin code.
Oh, Verus coin, one word. She correct. Let me put it in the chat.
I'm just looking into that now. So I'm going to use coinmarketcap.com to have a look at Verus coin because it's listed there. So that's in the top 500 out of, so like I say, out of about over 11,000. That's quite high up. Current value overall, $65 million. So let's have a look at what this does.
White paper available, which is good. And they've got a link to the website, which is also good.
So what does it do? It is a zero knowledge technology. So, okay, zero knowledge technology is ways of validating information without seeing the information itself. That's done through some very clever maths. So Verus Coin is offering public blockchain. So that's open to everybody as a service. Its design is to solve the weaknesses in other systems where you can stake coins in order to have control and governance or validation. So this is probably going to be a higher safety level of blockchain compared to some things that exist right now. It also aims to be more consistent in how people use the service. So if, for example, if you've got a CPU driven computer rather than an ASIC or a GPU, you might get different performance. So one of the things that Verus are trying to resolve are making it perform evenly across all sorts of computer systems.
This is a tangent, but it brings me to another criticism that I hear about Bitcoin a lot, which is the mining and the energy and the impact on the environment, and that might be a reason that some people have hesitation.
Yeah, it's a really interesting area. So the proof of work process, the thing that's uses so much energy, is every time a new Bitcoin is created. So every time a block of transactions is validated and added to the blockchain, in order to do that, you need to use quite a bit of computer power and quite a bit of electricity. The reward for doing that is the creation of new Bitcoin that goes to the people that solve the computer puzzle, the hash. So essentially what is doing, it's called mining because it's a bit like mining for gold. You don't just walk down the street and find gold lying around. Like if you did, we'd all have it and it'd be worthless. So in order to get gold, you've got to put in a lot of effort. So there's an exchange of work in order to receive value. With Bitcoin, that exchanges computer power and electricity in order to generate Bitcoin. So you have to put in a lot of effort in order to get the Bitcoin. At the same time, that's what makes the system so secure. If you wanted to try to create Bitcoin, there's no way you can do that without investing in that energy, in those computers and in that power in order to achieve it. So that investment of work in order to receive reward is what also makes the system secure, because you can't just hack that and bypass that. You have to work with the system. The second valuable thing about that, so yes, it does use a lot of electricity, but that electricity is then stored in the value of Bitcoin, so that it's monetized. If you think about how much electricity is used in the fiat currency system, so banks, banking, central banking, the printing of money, and everything else that goes on around that in order to control that system, the amount of electricity used for running the US dollar is going to be hundreds of times greater than that used for Bitcoin. The second thing is that the cost of mining for Bitcoin, therefore, is computer power and electricity. So what Bitcoin miners do is try to source the cheapest, most reliable sources of electricity. That's why loads of Bitcoin miners used to be in China, because they were using hydroelectric electricity. It's cheap. They're using the spill-offs from. So when you generate electricity, you send it into the electrical grid to be used. If it's not used, it dissipates. It doesn't get stored very easily. It's very hard to store electricity apart from in batteries, right? So a lot of electricity gets wasted. So you generate more power than's being used, and the excess is wasted. So Bitcoin mining was essentially trying to capture the electricity that would otherwise be wasted. So that electricity is going to get created whether Bitcoin miners are using it or not. They're trying to capture that because that's the cheapest way for them to operate. In a way, that's actually increasing efficiency of electrical usage. And now Bitcoin miners were forced to leave China. China said, we don't want you here. So they're finding other places that have cheap, reliable sources of electricity. Some of that will be like coal-based or other fossil fuel-based, what we would consider, which is bad for our environment. But quite a bit of it is actually wind turbines, hydroelectric power, volcanic power. In El Salvador, they generate Bitcoin from the heat from volcanoes. I mean, that's happening anyway. There's not an environmental disaster that the volcano exists, but the fact that Bitcoin is driven towards finding the most efficient way to use electricity, and actually leading towards organizations saying, how can we generate electricity more efficiently so that we can mine Bitcoin at a lower cost, is actually driving towards greener use of electricity. That isn't to say that it doesn't use a lot. It does use a lot. There's not a denial of that in any way, but it's understanding the consequence of turning electricity into money and how that drives people to look for efficiency, for using excess that would have been wasted anyway, and ultimately developing technologies which make it more acceptable and more efficient and lower cost. So both arguments exist. Yes, there is a cost to it, but that cost isn't an inherent waste. It's actually a generator of value.
I have one more question. And if somebody wanted to reach out to you or contact you, how would they do that?
Oh, that's a good question. So probably the easiest way would be through Twitter. And I'm terrible at remembering my Twitter handle, so I'm going to find that now. And then maybe Jeff, once this stream is posted, put it in the comments below, and then anyone can just tweet me or DM me there.
It is Crypto Citizen 4L. The number 4.
There you go. Glad you can remember that.
So yeah, we will put it in the link when I post the when it posts on YouTube. I'll go ahead and add it to the description.
That'd be great. Yeah.
Rich, do you have any closing questions or comments before we head off to the chat?
What I'd like to say, this is obviously like a super massive topic. And I think it would be really beneficial for me and everybody really to kind of touch on this again in another podcast later on down the line. I'd definitely like to follow on from what Neil just talked about of proof of work into the change to proof of stake as well. That would be a really interesting one to go on to. And I really would like to dive into kind of the psychology behind it all as well. That would be really cool. But yeah, this has been really great. Thanks, guys.
Neil, you're awesome.
Well, happy to do those. Those podcasts sound like fun, and I'd be really up for that. And maybe working together, we can generate a bit of a channel where we can share information on a more regular basis. I will eventually have something like along the lines of a website or a learning channel for people. Probably built on a blockchain, so it might not be on YouTube, it might be on one of the something like Rumble or Theta or one of the other services out there now. But yeah, thank you very much, and let's just continue with this. If it's, I hope it's helpful for people, and I know and people and anyone watching, please leave, like, if you've got comments about what you didn't learn from this that you'd like to learn, or what didn't make sense. It's really helpful to have that feedback so that can improve the content and make it actually more useful for people. So yeah, lovely. Thank you.
Well, thank you too. We have a few people ringing the doorbell to get in now, so I guess we'll wrap up and come and join us for the chat and hang out. And thank you for watching. Take care.